We're joined from London now by the former Australian Prime Minister, Kevin Rudd. Kevin Rudd, good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you and greetings on this sad day from London.
Kevin Rudd, what went through your mind when you heard the news?
I didn't really believe it because, obviously being in London, we'd been watching closely the Queen's meeting with Boris Johnson and the new Prime Minister Liz Truss on Tuesday. And then the reports about her again retreating from further work commitments. But so when we heard reports today that doctors were with her, I must admit my view, and Therese's as well, who's with me, was that she'll bounce back. She always does. Alas, this time, not to be the case. I think that's the view of so many Brits I've spoken to in the last several hours as well.
Her relationship with Brits, of course, but also with Australia has been strong and enduring. How do you reflect on that relationship?
Well, as Prime Minister, I had the opportunity to spend quite a bit of time with the Queen over the years. I remember visiting Windsor Castle not long after I was sworn in, actually, and then after quite a long discussion with Her Majesty, then came back again literally a year later during the G20 summit here in London. So Commonwealth meetings, and after quite a number of these meetings, you do get a sense of the person. So what struck me most was just her overriding commitment to the institution of the Commonwealth. It was a constant theme in her conversation. What we could do to strengthen it, what we could do to improve it, what we could do about some of the more wayward democracies among its membership. So this was her passion and something which she lived for throughout her reign.
Much has been made as well, as you say, about the relationship she had with various leaders, her ability to get across the brief. We were talking to the former British Prime Minister John Major earlier, and he spoke with fondness about the meetings that he had with her. No note takers, of course, no one else in the room apart from a few corgis, and of course he's not going to reveal what was said there. But what do you think of the relationship she had with various leaders, various politicians?
Well, the first thing that struck you was how much across her state papers she was. I mean, I would have hated to have been a British cabinet minister or a British prime minister because she would have read that stuff absolutely thoroughly. But in meeting folks like myself, she was also extraordinarily well briefed. We had long conversations, for example, about climate change at a time when it was not, as it were, universally sort of on the agenda of mainstream politics in the media in the United Kingdom. But you've just mentioned corgis, and the other thing is that, she's just a person with a great sense of fun and a sense of humour at the same time. I certainly remember being at Buckingham Palace when Therese asked where the corgis were, and then with a flash of the wrist, a button was pushed and this stampede of corgis arrived in the dining room and almost wrecked the place. And Therese pointed to one of the corgis and said, "This one looks unlike the others." To which Her Majesty looked down, looked back at Therese and said, "Yes, and her mother was a complete trollop." So she had a really good sense of humour, quite apart from being fully across the brief in terms of her responsibilities for the Commonwealth. And as we saw most recently at Balmoral, 2 days before her death, exercising her full constitutional responsibilities.
What's King Charles III going to be like, do you think?
Well, also as a consequence of spending a fair bit of time in and out of London during my own period in office and also as Foreign Minister, I had a number of occasions to meet Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles, and now the Queen Consort. I think what Australians should know about Prince Charles, if they haven't worked this out already, is that he's quite a passionate environmentalist, and a passionate environmentalist well before it was ever fashionable to be one. So his sense of climate change responsibilities, his sense of the impact on other ecosystems and of our, furry critters friends, this is something that comes naturally to him. He's probably our first role goal conservationist to be the British monarch.
In your statement that you put out earlier, you made mention of whether you're a royalist or a Republican in Australia, there is a sense of a very significant passing having taken place. Where do we go now? I don't want to get into a debate about, the future place that Australia may hold, but you made mention of that in your statement, and I'm assuming it's because you do feel there is a unity of people, whatever side they're on, that they do feel strongly about the Queen.
Very much so, and I've said a lot to that effect in the British media, because here in the UK, the Brits' first question is, but you guys are Republicans, and how do you feel, therefore, about all this? Does this provide you with a great opportunity, etc., etc.? For which the bottom line response is, all of us saw the Queen with enormous affection and respect, Republicans or monarchists. When I first met the Queen, I told her the story of my mum, Catholic, working class, Irish extraction. You know, according to the textbook, she should have been a Sinn Féiner, my mother, but she was absolutely devoted to the Queen. And when you probed it, and I passed this on to Her Majesty at the time, it was because my mother said, there we were during the war, doing it tough against the Japanese in the Pacific, but there they were, royal family, the two kids, as she used to call them, Margaret and Elizabeth, staying in Buckingham Palace while the bombs rained down on London. So it's that sense of duty and that sense of, as it were, solidity during times of national crisis, which spoke volumes across the decades to Australians, whether they were Republicans or monarchists. There's a great sense of her being, the country's, kind of, or the Commonwealth's kind of nana figure. And that's why I think everyone feels something when we have the passing of such a significant and devoted person.
You are going to see it firsthand over there over the next few days. Kevin Rudd, thank you for your reflections live from London.
Good to be with you on what's a really sad day.